It's been rough. There's no other way around it. It's been rough to be a Guardians fan. It has been a bad 5 days, but there might be some positive news on the horizon. We're going to get into what's been going wrong. We're going to get into a no good, terrible, awful game. And we're going to talk about a rumor that just popped up on the Twitters about a top prospect coming to Cleveland. All on today's episode of Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Locked On Guardians. I'm your host, Jeff Ellis, formerly of Scout, formerly of 24/7, now all of Locked On. We're going to get into the game. We're going to get into some old friend alerts. We're going to get into some roster moves. We're going to get into rumors. We're just going to get into all of it today. Where should we start? Let's start with the game. Let's just get this out of the way. This was an awful game. That's just, at the end of the day, I think it's perfectly encapsulated by the fact they finally scored a run thanks to a wild pitch. Like, that is how this game goes. I know. Did I tell you to... Man, I just wanted to get into it so much. I don't think I told you to thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever you get podcasts. But yeah, this was a stinker. Triston McKenzie, it's been a few bad starts in a row. Like, let's not put it out there. And this is the problem that has been his problem since, the beginning of time, since he's been a pitcher in the minors and the majors, is that consistency, finding consistency. Throughout this game, I didn't stick with it. I'll be honest, this is another one that I was like, okay, I've seen enough. He was sitting low 90s, but it's not like Bieber. It's not like he can hit his points, and he was low 90s down the middle of the plate, it felt like. There's not a lot of movement. It's not a pitch that inspires, swing and miss in and of itself. And you look at the data, it's like this game, 7 runs. Game before that, 6 runs. He had that one against Colorado that was brilliant. We didn't expect that to happen. Oakland, but then again, you look at the quality of the team. Baltimore took him for 5, and then it's been a rough month, and it's that inconsistency with Triston McKenzie that has really held him back from becoming more than a 3. Like, he can flash 1. He can legit flash like number 1 upside, and then he'll turn around and have a series of games where he doesn't have it. And again, the innate problem is it's still a weird build. He's still a unicorn, let's be honest there. But go look at his data on Baseball Savant. Like, this shouldn't be a surprise. His curveball has the 11th percentile for spin. His average exit velocity is 8th. He's getting hit hard. Hard hit is 20th percentile. This is a guy who gets hit hard. Slugging, 17th. Barrel, 8%. Guys see his stuff, and they get at it. Like, it is not hard to pick up his pitches. And then guys are hitting it extremely hard. They're barreling it. They're hitting it at high exit velocities. I could double check. I have a sinking feeling if I looked at the data, he probably leads Major League Baseball in home runs. Maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe this is, me just doing a recent bias, but he has given up so many home runs in just about every single game that it's hard for me to imagine that is not the case. And again, like I said, you can look at that Savant data, it is all bad. The slider is not a particularly effective pitch. His curveball doesn't spin enough. His fastball has good spin, but low velocity. The only things that are in the red are fastball spin and walk rate, and then expected batting average is kind of a little bit red. And then he's got a lot of dark blue. Like, this, again, shows... Because it's still small sample size for pitchers. We're still kind of early going, but this, again, shows a guy who's... right now there's Bieber, and then there's 3 4s. Like, that's the truth of the matter. You could argue 5s if you want, but, like... McKenzie still is not a guy you can really count on. He has not separated himself consistently from that pack, and there has been no consistency with him in terms of like just day-to-day, month-to-month performance, and that's just going to continue to be something that holds him back overall. And it's the same story, right? It's what we saw last year. It's why he spent time in AAA. It's what the issues were at points in the minors, where I would see him go out one inning and throw 96. Now that Akron gun ran hot. But then he would also turn around, and in the next inning, he'd be throwing, 91. Like, he couldn't keep consistent velocity, he couldn't consistently hit his points. I have some big concerns overall when it comes to just consistency for McKenzie, allowing him to be more than a solid mid-rotation starter. Like, I just don't know if there's going to be enough there to allow him to elevate beyond simple mid-rotation starter. I'm going to pause real quick because I want to see if he does lead the league in home runs or not. I don't think this is updated just based on what I'm seeing here. So he was tied for third at 14. And then, of course, tonight, was it, I know I should know the exact amount. I was trying to remember if it's 2 or 3 he gave up tonight. It was 2 for him and the 1 for Shaw. I knew there was 3. So 2 more home runs given up by McKenzie tonight, then puts him up to, in terms of home runs, he is second behind Jose Barrios of Toronto, who has 17. Past Josiah Gray with Washington, moved out of a tie with Marco Gonzalez, Robbie Ray, Jose Urdique, German Marquez, and Chris Bassett. No, Chris Bassett was one behind. So, yeah, we're looking at a guy who's leads the team in home runs, right? Is that where we are? Has he? I think Triston McKenzie leads the Guardians at home runs. Okay, let's just knock the rest of this game out. Let's do our box score bingo. 14 hits for the Twins in this one. They also had 2 walks. I almost thought it's at 11. That's RBIs. So that's 16. 2 hit batters. So that gives them 4 total situations where they reach base via the walk. So that gives them 18 opportunities. 11 runs is a lot on 18 opportunities. But they also had, 5 extra base hits. Cleveland managed 2 walks and 5 hits. I guess there was also the error I left out, so 19 opportunities, still a lot on that. Cleveland had 5 hits. They had 2 walks. They had 7 opportunities, and they got 1 run. That's low. They had no extra base hits. That kind of explains that situation. The other thing that stands out with McKenzie is, he didn't walk a lot of guys. I talked about how that's the important indicator. He didn't walk guys because they were just seeing him cleanly. But there was still he had 2 wild pitches and he hit a batter. There were control issues in this one, and then the home run rate is just he's getting hit hard, extremely hard. Guys are barreling up, seeing the ball and making hard contact, and it's going to lead to a lot more games that we've seen like in these last 2. Brian Shaw is turning into a pumpkin. He's, again, ERA is a terrible stat, especially for relievers, but the fact that his is up to 5.32 already. Like, if we were to go and talk about what's happened, this is when he turned into a pumpkin a year ago. Remember when if you go back and listen to the podcast, I was talking about, this was a great off the scrap heap thing. He has found new life. He is this guy who's going to be our 7th inning guy. It's going to go Shaw to Karinchak to Clase, and they're going to be unbeatable 7, 8, 9. And then he imploded, and he did it again. And they went out and gave him $3 million plus a ton of incentives for appearances. And Tito's going to keep running him out. He's already appeared in 31 games. He's going to end up making second highest salary on this team next year. And it's ridiculous. And when you got him and you got that one roster spot that's essentially being flipped daily to get an arm up because the bullpen's been overtaxed. And where's Eli Morgan? Is he alive? Can we do a welfare check on Eli Morgan? He hasn't pitched in a week. He's your best reliever this year in terms of statistical performance. I love Clase. Clase is the best reliever overall. But in statistical performance, and the guy who's the former starter who can eat innings is Eli Morgan. He hasn't pitched since last Tuesday. We're talking about a week off for him. Why is he not playing? I don't get it at all. It makes no sense. But, yeah, let's run Shaw out. Henches is great, but let's run him out 4 times in a week and run out Morgan once. It just doesn't make sense. Let's run out Shaw 3 times. Shaw is done. The contract was ridiculous when it happened. It's ridiculous now. And, of course, we're going to give one of the stars in this game to Ernie Clement because he pitched. And it was awful, but he pitched as a hitter, and at least that was the high point of entertainment in this game. Who reached base twice in this one? Stephen Kwan. That's it. He gets one of our other stars. And then with no extra base hits, I'm going to give it to Ian Gabat, who was the call-up. We'll talk about that a little bit. here when we get into the second segment of the show and we talk about some old friends alerts and some things that, the roster moves that occurred. But yeah, he was the only reliever who didn't give up a run. So there we go. Ian Gabat, the lefty. I know I'm butchering the name. Stephen Kwan and Ernie Clement are your stars in this one. It was, again, it just, I talked about it in my short and someone mentioned in the comments, it just feels like since they blew that bases loaded situation, everything has turned to poop. Like, it's just like a switch from that moment on. Everything that could go wrong has gone wrong, and it's been fundamentally unwatchable baseball. We're going to take our first commercial break. We're going to come back again, talk about some roster moves, talk about some old friend alerts, get into some sexy rumors, and talk about exactly what has gone wrong with this lineup and how the Guardians can fix it. Our first sponsor is a unique unicorn, much like Triston McKenzie. Everything they do is unique, original, and something you have never seen before, and that is BlueNile.com. Blue Nile is, I don't know, in my mind, my first thought is fancy jewelry. I think to others, they would probably use high-end jewelry. It's, wedding, fine jewelry, whatever works. They mention in here engagement rings and bands, diamond jewelry, cocktail rings, gemstones, necklaces. If you want something that stands out, go to BlueNile.com. And right now, make the moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com, and Locked On Sports listeners get $50, not $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement. Use code Locked On. That's code Locked On, plus every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. Let's talk about Rock Auto. Listen, I could just read the ad, or I could just constantly hammer the point that don't be me. Don't ignore this ad. I wasted $50 getting windshield wipers because I was lazy. And windshield wipers aren't that hard to install. They're really not. Same thing with filters. And they often have rebates and deals to save you even more money on filters. Go to rockauto.com today and get the part your car needs and save yourself money. You're going to do it. You're going to save money. There's no way you're not. And if you're like, well, I don't know what part to get, you can sit there and they have the little icons, even let you know what are their popular ones. You can see, what is the one that sells, and you can go get that for your car. And remember that when you go to rockauto.com and save yourself a ton of cash, that you're going to write in the How'd You Hear About Us box Locked On so they know we sent you. That's rockauto.com. They'll save you money that you can then use to buy jewelry at Blue Nile. So, okay. We talked about, so the rumor is already false. It was a bad rumor. It was if you're curious about what the bad rumor was, there was a rumor that the Guardians were going to go out and add a top prospect to this team, maybe George Valera. It would have been an odd jump for them, but I had to have fun with it, right? You see that from not necessarily a big name, but, it was from the Mad Thinker, who I've been friends with for years. So I was like, hey, he's got some connections. Let's see if this has legs. And again, I'm not insulting him that it did not. We all take bad turns. I always remember rather infamously, I was like, there's definitely a trade happening. Like in Akron, there was a bunch of stuff happening. They're trying to get things together. And I'll still stand. Something was going to happen. It was the 11th hour, and it didn't. And I think they just couldn't get together in time. There was going to be something that occurred, and then I tweeted out, something is definitely happening. And then nothing happened. So we all have been there. But yeah, that would have been exciting because this team needs to do something exciting. Unless you want to count adding Ian Gabad or however his name, adding a guy who's going to be here for about 3 days. He might not even be here tomorrow. Let's be honest. They did exactly what I said they do with Tanner Tully. Again, he has earned those opportunities and those chances, but he was released immediately after pitching 2 innings because they wanted another fresh arm. Because again, apparently Eli Morgan is dead somewhere. And they just refuse to pitch him. But they're doing this kind of wave of arms where it's, hey, that guy gets a call up. It's a nice little paycheck for being in the big league roster. I'm sure they get paid more when you do that move up. I don't know the specifics. But they come up and they're here to eat some innings as needed because the starters aren't going deep at all across the board. And again, that's why his team, honestly, it's like, yeah, Daniel Espino hasn't pitched in 2 months. But he's the top prospect to many. Gavin Williams is in Double-A pitching well. They have all of these young arms. And, I was talking with Daniel Sheriff over at the Chagrin. I don't know what Chagrin's paper is, but Daniel and I used to hang out in the press box in Akron. And he's like, what's the deal with Columbus? What goes wrong there? I'm like, it's just a bad park. It makes it hard to evaluate anybody because it was a poorly designed park it's great for like home runs and excitement. But my own personal pet peeve is trying to go to a game there. Once took me like an hour and a half to park. They got rid of all the easy parking that used to be there when they first built it back when I lived in Columbus. And then it's just not a park designed to allow you to get good statistical information on guys. And I think it messes with some players as well. I think talk about guys who kind of bottom out in the Guardians for a time there. It looked like they were honestly, hey Nacho, you're going to add some things to the podcast today. Some players where it seemed to mess with their head. Like, I honestly believe that. It seemed like the Guardians at a point in time were almost skipping it. We're having guys jump directly for a reason. They didn't want it to mess with players. We'll see. They've been a little bit more, typical in how they're calling guys up nowadays. It's not quite that skip double A. But there should be some more moves just because they've done, a bunch of guys up to double A. But yeah, the pitching and system is great. Unfortunately, on the big league roster, it's Shane Bieber has been awesome of late, and then it's a bunch of back-end starters. I don't know if there's anyone in there that really makes you feel confident that they are more than a 3 or 4 or a 5. That's where it is. And, unfortunately, Peyton Batenfield was one of those guys, like when you looked at Zips a year ago, he looked utterly fantastic. He hasn't missed bats this year. And, Nick Miklajak, who I've talked about, is like the top reliever in system. He has struggled in AAA. Like, his strikeouts are down and his walks are up, and it's hard to say, is it the better competition of AAA, or is it, again, a cruddy park? Let's do some old friend alerts. Let's get off some of the negative and then talk about even more negative after that. Carlos Santana traded to the Mariners. Ty France is hurt. I've had some people ask about, why can't the Guardians trade for Ty France? Why can't the Guardians trade for Tyler Stevenson? We can't trade for ties. It's a rule. If their name could go by Ty, they can't play for the Guardians. No, the honest goodness reason is, why would Seattle trade their all-star? He was someone I liked to the Guardians, honestly. He's one of those players that the Padres debated adding to their Rule 5. He was kind of like a Franmil type for them, and then he finally got an opportunity to look decent and went to Seattle, got an extended look. I mean, this guy who had, I've spent a lot of time. That whole piece I did in the offseason where I talked about, the prospects who are not big-name prospects, but names you should know. Players that are performing at such a level that there might be more there. If I'd done that a few years ago, Ty France would have been on that list. But they're trying to contend right now. They go out and they get Carlos Santana. I'm willing to bet that Kansas City, they sent cash, is paying 80 to 90% of his salary, if not 100. I think that, the big thing was a little bit of savings. Wyatt Mills, I'm not as familiar with William Fleming. I liked Wyatt Mills a lot coming out of college as like a multi-inning reliever, but control has been a massive issue for him. And Kansas City has not been particularly great in pitcher development, so I don't know if that's going to go there. But, I liked Mills quite a bit, and, it's a solid get. And Fleming is, potentially another bullpen type, one of those many Wake Forest arms in the minors. But Seattle, with France hurt, they're adding Carlos Santana because they still want to try at this thing. Then the other move, I told you here on the show, again, Oscar Mercado would get claimed, and he was. Philadelphia. He went past a lot of teams, but he still got claimed. There were probably other teams that would have as well. Being a right-handed bat who can play 3 outfield spots, who when he plays, is a streaky. A lot of things to say about Oscar Mercado. One could say about Owen Miller, honestly. It's like a streaky hitter who, when he's on, can play really well and play multiple spots. Yep. But I knew he would get claimed somewhere. So he is claimed. He's officially no longer part of the organization fully now. He's on his way to Philadelphia. But let's now flip it around and let's talk about, let's take our next break. We talked about roster moves. We talked about what's kind of going down in terms of the rumors and some other fun things. But let's take a break here. Let's take break number 2. Come back and just talk about what has been happening since May 1st for the Cleveland Guardians. I almost gave you guys a jingle, but I decided to be nice and not do that. Setting a bet online to the Linkimals toy my son is listening to all the time. If you want to hear a terrible jingle, let me know on my Twitter, JeffMLBDraft, and I will sing it for next show. But instead, let's focus on what Bet Online is. You know what it is. It's in the name. It's Bet Online. .net. If you need information, if this is your thing, and we know it is probably the biggest growing thing in sports right now is online betting. And BetOnline is your number one source for all of your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports development, league reviews, and news, including this year's NHL playoffs, though those are now over. Maybe next year's NHL futures, those are already going up, and Major League Baseball. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all of your sports scores and news this season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to check all of your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, golf, and baseball. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Listen, we all know at the start of the year, there were guys who were completely in fuego, who were on fire in terms of their performance, and that has not been the case. I talked about the fact that Josh Naylor, you get rid of those 50 at-bats from the start of the year, and he has the entire rest of his career, his runs created plus is a 70. It's better than Ernie Clement, but it's still not good. Like, he is a backup who he was the DH today. I know. I was upset as well. Over here, Nacho is just beside himself that's the case. This team, I understand they're working Franmil back, but go through this team right now. So in terms of runs created plus, I would switch over and show you. Since May 1st, Jose Ramirez has a 163. So he is still, fantastic. Andres Jimenez, 145. Josh Naylor, 138. Like, these are players who've been consistently good. This is over 100 plate appearances. These are guys who can pretty much pencil or, ink it in. Don't pencil, ink it in. Oscar Gonzalez, I still don't know how he's doing it, but like a 124. Of late, we have seen a little bit more of the league catching up to him. I'll be curious to see what occurs. It's only been 28 games for him. I want to give it another month before I come to any formal conclusion one way or another. Maybe another month and a half, honestly. Next, Franmil Reyes. For all the issues, he still had 89 plate appearances since May 1st. And he's got a 118 runs created plus. That's right, at 118. Better than you thought, isn't it? I know, he started out just absolutely in the toilet, but it's better than you think. Ahmed Rosario, a 115. I've been so negative on that dude, but he is at a 115. So, I know. He's letting me know. You guys think that you let me know about how much, how all the negative takes on Ahmed? Right now, right here. Nacho is having a fit. Continuing on. Stephen Kwan at 91. So, remember when he was literally had the best debut a hitter has ever had? Yeah, 91 now. Richie Palacios is 75. That's only 57 plate appearances. He's not getting those opportunities. Luke Maley, 63. Owen Miller, 61. So he is below Maley since May 1st. Oscar Mercado, 54. Austin Hedges, 46. And then your bottom two, 38 for Ernie Clement, 35 for Miles Straw. Now, the other thing I want to point out during this time, if we want to talk about and look at, okay, so that's a 2-month period. It's not the largest sample size, but it's enough to look into. Who has been lucky or unlucky? Well, the highest BABIP during that time belongs to Franmil Reyes, followed by Oscar Gonzalez, then Andres Jimenez. Those are all hot, Franmil's at 435, Oscar at almost 370, Andres almost at 370 as well. So there's some regression with both those guys. Ahmed at 338 is high, but not dramatically high for a guy with his speed. Then you have kind of the group that is middle, average, like Naylor and Palacios and Kwan have not really been. Kwan's speed, he's maybe been a little unlucky. Jose Ramirez has been unlucky. That's right. He's got a 163 and he's been unlucky. Owen Miller's been a little bit unlucky as well. Clement a little. And then catchers, that should be a little bit lower. But according to this, it's BABIP-wise, Miles Straw and Austin Hedges are both 100 points below league average. Their batting averages should be about 100 points higher. So then, if Straw is hitting 261, he's a different guy for this lineup during this time instead of hitting 161. You're talking about a 350 on base, you'll take it. He's never going to do you much for slugging. But a 350 on base percentage, that works. So he's been incredible, especially with his speed. One could argue that his career, it's not that hard to find out. And then Austin Hedges, again, it's if he bumps that up, it's a huge difference maker for him. Straw's career BABIP is, by the way, I hate how they don't do a composite. Let's put it this way. Last year he had a 336, a 345 before that, a 283. Still, it's like even at the low end of it, it's 100 points below where it should be. So he has been incredibly unlucky during that time. And that's when we sit there and get upset about Straw because he's been really bad. You look at the fact that he has been incredible, not just a little, incredibly, like 100-point difference unlucky. Moving on from that, though, it's like Miller, I think, it's minorly unlucky. It's not like it's 25 points difference. Yeah, I mean, that could be, it's less than 25 points difference. But that does show, like, a little bit higher, but it doesn't change him that much. It doesn't put his on-base percentage over 300, which it needs to be. Same kind of story with, like, Mercado, who they let go. That's the thing. So right now with this team, when I'm looking at it, I think Brandon Miller's your DH. Naylor at first. Second baseman, I'm just going to give in. Andres at second base, Ahmed at short. For now, I think we all know he's getting traded before the deadline. And the nice thing with him playing well is that value is going up, up, up. Teams need infielders. If we were to go and, discuss the standings right now, with the Guardians now falling back to just 3 games over 500, the Angels are 5 games below. The Rangers are 3 games below. That's the one thing. It's like, who are you going to trade with? The White Sox, maybe? Would you do that again? I mean, it worked out for Pilkington, so I think you got to consider it. The Rays don't need an infielder. The Blue Jays don't really. I mean, Espinal. I mean, the best thing they did was not sell the farm for Jose Ramirez. Espinal has been great for them at second base. Not to say that Jose wouldn't have made him better, but you're looking at incremental improvement versus the overall cost. Red Sox. I mean, I don't really need an infielder. They went out and paid all the money for Trevor Story to play second base. He hasn't been that good, but they don't. By the way, the Red Sox now number 2, number 1 wild card. They've passed the Blue Jays and the Rays with the way they've been playing. Cleveland is now several games back of the Rays, so they're back to the point where they're kind of fighting for the division, and they're 3 back of the Twins. I mean, they need to win the rest of these games to really get back to where they were a week ago. So looking at this team, though, so we discussed that lineup on the infield, at least for now. Catching is just, no matter what happens, who knows. Straw is going to get back to being about, a tick below league average, and then he's there for his glove. Kwan in the other outfield spot, and I guess Gonzalez in the other place, and that's kind of what you're looking at with this team right now. I still think if you can go out and get Ian Happ and Wilson Contreras, do that tomorrow. Do it tomorrow. Like, literally do that move tomorrow. Let Happ play one of the outfield spots for the next 2 years. Let Contreras be your catcher. Send him, Melee the other way. If you can do that and manage to not give up kind of that upper crust tier, which honestly, like, no one trades away their upper crust tier of talent anymore in prospect deals. So it shouldn't be that big of an expectation. And you go back and you even look at someone like Matt Olson, the big player in the offseason. Christian Pache was more of a failed guy. Like, he's a guy who had several opportunities and hadn't put it together, and he was the centerpiece. That was not Shea Langoliers was not like a top 3 prospect in most places for the Braves. Like, it was a solid return, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't no one trades their top guys hardly ever anymore. So I'm not exactly expecting that. And yeah, I mean, I'm totally up for going out and getting a David, right? Bednard. Or Bedard from Pittsburgh, where you got 4.5 years of control, and the guy's absolutely filthy and is going to be an all-star. I'm more interested in getting him than Brian Reynolds, especially like with what they're building internally. Like, imagine adding him to that late inning mix. But I also don't necessarily think that's the biggest push. I think it's starting pitching, it's catching. And I mean, it's adding a bat, or let's see what these kids can do. It's gone great for a lot of these young guys. What Mercado has done, what Naylor has, nope, not what Mercado has done. What Oscar has done, Gonzalez. I went with the wrong Oscar there. What Oscar Gonzalez has been able to do, what Andres has done, what Naylor has done with this extended opportunity this year is a lot of success stories at the top of this, right? So why not go get Nolan Jones? Let's see what he can do. He's been on the 40-man. This is his second year. You're burning through options. You're going to have to make a choice soon with him. Gabriel Reyes is, he's basically sitting there. When they trade Rosario, because again, it's going to happen. He's getting called up. He's going to be the shortstop who gets that opportunity and goes. But it's like Nolan Jones. What do you got to lose? Ty Freeman. And that's the other thing too. Like, I'm not the biggest Ty Freeman fan, and I've always been upfront and honest about that because I honestly think he's maybe a. So if Owen White is with the bat, a plus version of Ernie Clement, then the plus version of Owen White is Tyler Freeman. And again, I'm not sure if he's a starter, but you got to start trying and seeing what these guys can do. And there's a lot of talented players. And honestly, if you're not going to go make a trade, if you're not going to add a catcher, then promote Bo Naylor. I mean, what he has done this year in terms of just complete game change and what he has produced, and the fact you're going to have to add him at the end of the year, it sounds like Lavastida could miss time, like a significant amount of time. It's not an insignificant amount of time that he is going to miss due to injury. So I haven't looked to see what Naylor's done since he's been promoted, but I would honestly consider promoting him to the majors. Luke Maile is not good. They went out and got him because there was absolutely nothing on the market, and they wanted a backup. So since his promotion, he's 5 games, and he's got a 33 runs created plus. He's 150, 217, 300 slugging. I mean, we can see how it goes at the same time, but they need to do something about catching. They need to consider consolidating for pitching, and that's the thing. I'm just going to keep harping on it. The 40-man is a disaster show. There's ways you can get around it. There's a bunch of guys that conceivably, I don't think they're going to cut a bunch of guys. I know people always kind of go into that mode, but this is clearly a team that does not believe in that. But, Brandon Dibble pointed out that, Castro, McCarty, Yan Ramirez, Tully's already gone, though. But, Gabald's the same thing. Maile and Clement is all guys. And I added Myers to that list. It's those are all players that could very potentially not be here next year. And that opens up with this, if we add Myers into it, that opens up 4 spots. Which, again, if you're adding 4, Espino, Clement, Naylor are kind of 3 easy ones. Angel Martinez is very likely another one. And then that means that Xavier Curry is exposed. That means Hunter Gaddis is exposed. That means Ethan Hankins is exposed to the Rule 5 draft. It means, I'm not as worried about someone like Gabriel Rodriguez right now. It means Lenny Torres is exposed. It means a lot of, you're still going to get hit. Junior San Quintin, a lot of people really liked him. There are guys who are going to get taken. And that's if they do the most aggressive cutting they've ever done, which is something they've never done. I've been Jeff Ellis. This has been Locked On Guardians podcast for this week. Remember to rate and review, download daily. It helps. I know, right now the team's bad. You don't want to necessarily hear someone talk about the negative. And it shows up in the downloads and the YouTube watches. But hey, just hit the YouTube to watch in the background. Make sure to click the subscribe button. We're up over 300. Let's keep that push going. Hitting 1,000 is just huge for me as a host. And listen, the podcast network has expanded exponentially. I started day one with the MLB side of things. If you like me as the host of this show and you don't want them to go chasing a bigger name in the market, I just recommend subscribing, downloading daily, making sure you always play. If you're someone who's like, well, I'm a little behind, but I try to catch him, I'm just going to put it on Front Street. That discussion has been out there at points. If you want me to remain here, you have to do your side of it, which is helping those numbers stay high. I know it's a little exploitative, but I'm just going to be honest. That's how it works. This is a growing network, and if this podcast doesn't grow, they will find someone else to grow it. So if you do enjoy me, you can follow me at Twitter at JeffMLBDraft. Make sure you're doing all the little parts. And as I end every show, go Guardians, go.